Oh, sorry. Hopefully you can still hear me. I just got a weird notification. Our second form of fuel is fat, and it is our low, slow burning fuel. Okay. So 20 to 30% of our total caloric intake should come from fats. But keep in mind that fat has twice as many calories as carbohydrates. So we are actually intake, if you followed this, let's just say the middle of the fat pie chart, 25%, and even low end of carbohydrates. If you had 50% carbohydrate and 25% fat in your diet, it's the same amount of calories per macronutrient, if that makes sense. So fat goes a long way. It's a lot of fuel for a lot less quantity. Now, I haven't even touched protein, and that's because protein isn't actually a source of fuel. Protein is what we use to help rebuild muscle tissue that we tear down when we are cycling. So, avoiding high protein meals before and during riding is a big key. And I'll tap into that more. We're going to talk about fueling before, during, and after. But I wanted you to get the big picture of our total needs in an average day. 50% carbohydrates on a lower day, maybe a rest day or a short ride, up to 65% on a 3+ hour ride. Okay. So going right into pre-ride nutrition, we always want to base it on intensity and duration. How hard are you riding and how long are you riding? And how soon before the ride? If you're taking off at 6 a.m., I'm not going to ask you to get up at 4 and eat a 500 calorie breakfast, right? That's not very realistic, as opposed to riding in the afternoon or even the evening. So we want to think about our timing. Rule of thumb, if you're going to be riding 4, 3, 2, or 1 hours long, you want to eat that soon before. So even if you're just going to go and do a spin class or get on Zwift, if you're just going to do about an hour, have a snack about an hour before and then counting up. Ideally, somewhere in that 2 to 4 hour window for an endurance ride. Now, again, if you're exercising early in the morning, your dinner the night before is a big part of it because you only slept, but you still want to rev your engine with even just a little snack, maybe a banana or even a bottle of electrolyte mix to get your body going. Our goal is to be glycogen sufficient, meaning having enough stored carbohydrate in our muscles that they will last for at least an hour. Talking about our pre-workout meal, again, mostly carbohydrates, easy to digest, meaning moderate in fat and protein. Those things slow down our digestion and can cause stomach upset. And also our energy source is carbohydrates. Size of the meal varies based on your needs. Again, a small little lady as opposed to a big strong guy are going to need different quantities relative to body size and also intensity and duration of the workout. So I'm just going to plug this a little bit. I'm giving you the general nutrition guidelines, and I'm going to give you some food examples here in a moment. But if you need help navigating your personal needs, that's where a registered dietitian comes in. So I'll give you my contact information at the end. I'm happy to work with any of you on just determining your exact needs, because I don't expect you to walk away from this knowing every single thing that you need to do without a little help. So moving on with pre-ride nutrition, types of carbohydrate, we want to look for grains such as a simple cereal, pasta if it's the night before, some bread, fruit, starchy and cooked vegetables. It's hard to digest a lot of fiber, so you'd want to cook your vegetables. Aiming for, whether you use metric or not, 0.45 to 1.3 grams of carbohydrate per pound of body weight, which is 1 to 3 grams per kilogram of body weight in your pre-ride meal. So we can do that math and it can give you an idea of how much carbohydrate. Then you turn that into food. So again, consider low fiber, easy to digest. It's basically the opposite of your normal nutrition. We're not going for complex carbohydrates, fibrous vegetables. It's kind of like you have two engines, right? So for your cycling engine, it's simple and easy to digest. You can drink your calories, right? If you're using electrolyte mix. Off the bike is we want to focus on getting those good lean proteins, moderate fats, whole grains, nuts, beans, all those things, okay? So also what you tolerate is very important. So it might take some trial and error. I'm sure we've all been there. We've gone out for a ride and gone, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that burrito because now I have a burrito baby in my belly and I can't pedal hard. Okay, it was probably too much fat, too much protein. So if you're giggling, I see some giggling out there. We've all done it where we've I want to quote Anchorman, milk was a bad choice, right? If you get nervous before a ride, make sure not to eat too close. We don't want to have anything coming back up. So eat slowly and a long time before. And then if you're competing, or even if it's a fondo, an hour before, that's when we want to do something like a bottle of mix or a simple gel. Eat a bag of chews, something like that. So it just gets some sugar in your system so you're ready to roll. Never experiment with new sport foods the day of an event. That's a pretty big rule to keep in mind. If you are doing a fondo or a race and they have feed zones or stations and you've never had X product, either try it before in training or bring your own, because the last thing you want is to train hard and plan everything right and then drink the mix that you've never had and it doesn't work for you. So also something to keep in mind is to practice your foods before. You can usually get a rider guide or a race Bible that will tell you what the product's going to be, so you can at least get a little feel for how your body's going to react. Everyone's different. That's my job security. There's not one right answer. I'd love to say, drink this mix, eat this bar, and you're going to be perfect. But it does take figuring out what's right for you. So here's a few ideas. I know that Tom's saving this, or if you contact me, I can send you this information or make an appointment with you. But just a quick example of some ideas of breakfasts when you're, and again, we're talking endurance, which is big rides, not just your daily, hour spin where we're loading up for a bigger, more endurance ride, when we're going to need to take in a bowl of oatmeal or have a substantial breakfast, or if it's an evening or afternoon group ride, something like that. Your lunch ideas right there. I'll just move straight through that because it's a pretty easy one. We can talk about specific foods further. So let's move into during. During rides is when we want to focus on not letting ourselves run out of gas. So once we've moved through our glycogen, remember the stored form of carbohydrates in our muscles, we need to keep replenishing that in order to keep our muscles moving. So how we run out of our fuel depends on how hard we're pedaling and how long we're out there. That chart at the bottom, I really like this as a reference point. The quick breakdown of it is the green line is super intense, like a time trial. They say go and you pedal as hard as you can until you're done. You will run out of your glycogen in 20 to 30 minutes, okay? Moderate intensity, like 70% effort, so endurance, right? Something you could pedal all day, or excuse me, above endurance, up into tempo, maybe climbing some hills. You're gonna run out of your glycogen in 60 to 90 minutes. It stops there at 105, so 75 minutes. And then easy pedaling, endurance and below, your sustained energy, it'll take up to 2.5, maybe 3 hours to go through. So like being pushed in a tailwind or something. So keeping those things in mind and how much fuel you need to take in your pockets. So anything over 60 minutes, you're for sure going to go through your glycogen. You can probably, and you've all experienced this, you can probably go out for an hour 15, maybe an hour 30 and just take water bottles or a bottle of mix, and you don't need snacks in your pockets. But anything above that, you got to have stuff with you. And that's assuming you had a pre-ride snack. So, of course, we want to avoid hypoglycemia. We don't want our body to start breaking down the wrong fuel for activity. We want to keep our muscles fueled and working strong, because then we're going to recover better. We're going to pedal stronger, all of those things. So what should I eat? A lot of the same things we were talking about, but the big key here is that we need 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour on the bike. So that doesn't take into consideration any fats that might be in. Let's say you have a bar, it might have a couple grams of fat, or some other things that, but you want to make sure you're getting a minimum of 30 and maybe up to 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour. And that will depend on body size and intensity as well. This is a chart I created that breaks down multiple sport foods, whether it's mixes, blocks, chews, gels, waffles, or real food on the right side, and how many grams of carbohydrate are in one serving. So I took some of the top products that I know are used often and that I think are really great products, and broke down how many grams of carbohydrate there are. So, and then also real food. So if you don't always want sport food, you want to take your own things. It's just a matter of making sure you can tolerate it and counting up how much that you need per hour. So let's say you're going for a 2-hour ride and it's high intensity, so you need 120 grams of carb. Maybe you're going to take 2 bottles of mix and a PB&J and then some honey stinger chews as a backup, right? As opposed to a century ride, you're going to need 5 times that. I mean, things add up, right? And so you can use, all right, this is about how much I burn per hour. And I'm going to, oh, I've never tried taking pretzels. Those are salty and easy to digest. Maybe I'll take pretzels and try them on this ride. So hopefully that chart can help you navigate a few of your rides. Hydration, I call the 4th food group. So we have our carbs, our fats, our proteins, but most important when we're sweating is maintaining our hydration. So it'll help you also keep your hunger and satiety in check. And the big thing to take away from I call it hydration and not drinking water, is because having electrolytes in your drinks are going to make you maintain your hydration balance, because it's not just water, it's our sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, all of those little itty bitty micronutrients that all have different jobs in our brains and muscles to keep us turning thousands and thousands of revolutions. Pop quiz. Do you know how to check your hydration status? And when do we use, I didn't know I had all these quizzes. When do we use sport drinks? As often as possible. What counts as hydrating liquids? Oh, this is for off the bike. Sorry, that's why I put that on. And oh, I don't like, I'm going to skip this little part. I didn't mean to put that pop quiz in. I just wanted to know, how do you gauge your hydration status? The color of your urine. So put a red box around the top 3, because that's about as dark as you want your urine to be. All right. If you're any darker than level 3, it means you are dehydrated. If you're also lighter than number 1, it means you need electrolytes. Okay. If your pee is clear, it means you definitely need electrolytes. And the great thing is you can replenish your hydration status within 30 minutes. So if you have a morning event and you wake up and go, oh, shoot, I have clear pee, drink a bottle of mix, and in about 30 minutes, your hydration status will be back on, and then you can continue and get ready for your event. Vice versa, if you wake up and it's dark, pound a bunch of water and you can reverse that pretty quickly. Our kidneys are fast to filter. So it's a really good way to just check. If your pee is orange, it's your vitamins. B vitamins are bright orange. And so if it's like glowing orange, that's okay. Just make sure that you know the difference. All right. Micronutrients. I just want to tap here a little bit because this isn't about necessarily fueling for before, during, and after exercise, except for our overall health. So off the bike, again, I want you to make sure to focus on eating lots of color. That's how we're going to get all of our vitamins and minerals. A daily supplement can help. Athletes do need more nutrients than the average person because we're utilizing a lot more nutrients. It's also why we have to eat more. It's not just calories, but it's our micronutrients. So some important ones include iron for red blood cell production, which brings oxygen to our muscles, calcium and vitamin D because of bone density, and vitamin D is also just the magic vitamin. It does so many things in our body. B vitamins are very helpful with our metabolism and utilizing our nutrients. And then our antioxidants to help us recover. You don't necessarily have to supplement vitamin C. It's in all of our food. One way I like to do is just one of those emergency packets with my multivitamin. But again, micronutrients are very specific, and we only need to supplement what we lack from our actual food that we intake. And so if you need help navigating, that's where I want you to give me a call. I can help you determine what supplements you need, but also what you don't need. You could be over supplementing. So just something to think about. So let's move into post-ride nutrition. Now we can talk about protein a little bit. So the first objective is to replenish what we lost during our workload, which is our fluid and our nutrients. Second is to repair damaged tissue. And third is to prepare for our next workout. Now, if you think, oh, I just did an hour spin, I don't need to recover, it wasn't hard. Well, part of your recovery is to get you ready. If you're going to exercise again within the next 24 hours, your recovery is actually really important in how you perform the next day. It can also help you from not getting famished and then going home and end up eating your whole pantry. I don't know if any of you have ever done that. But if you don't replenish what you lost within that 30-minute time window, and it's where I put that here, we want to get our recovery in within 30 minutes of finishing. And I know a lot of time, group ride or event, we end up chatting for a while and all of a sudden an hour's gone by and it's like, oh man, I got to go eat something. So it's really to your advantage to either have a recovery mix or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something ready for right when you finish, because it's going to make such a difference in your recovery and how you feel the rest of the day. And so that you don't end up overeating at night when you don't need energy to go to sleep. Here's the math. We want to get 1.5 liters for every kilogram lost. And that can just be a fun thing to do. Weigh yourself before and after, figure out how much water you're losing and replenish that way. Most recovery mixes have decent electrolytes in them as well. So you get a little bit more topped off on your electrolytes. Carbohydrates are in them. Please don't have the recovery mixes that are 0 carb, all protein, because endurance athletes actually need a 3-to-1 up to 4-to-1 carb to protein ratio in our recovery. Because again, we're burning carbs, we're not burning protein. Protein just helps us rebuild a little muscle tissue that we broke down during the exercise. And if you want to do the math of how much you need, that can help you there, whether you use kilograms or not. Now, again, I can help you determine all these numbers. Ooh, fancy little intro there. So this puts recovery into 3 stages. So if you're doing anything 3 hours or more, I want you to focus on recovering in stages. I know sometimes we're not hungry right when we finish. Maybe we don't want to eat a sandwich. And that's why the liquid mixes can be really helpful. Just shake some powder in a shaker bottle and get it down. Or even just a small bar. So stage 1 is just getting something in within that first 30 minutes. Then in the next 2 hours is when you probably will be ready for a meal, and just a nice balanced meal. There's a few examples there. And then a snack a couple hours later, and you can kind of, depending on what time you finish in the day, you just want to eat something every couple hours. And again, this is for 3+ hours. And you want to continue to hydrate. And you can, again, check your hydration status by looking in the toilet, and you can know, oh man, I better keep drinking. And if you're not going to the bathroom, you definitely need to keep drinking. You know, that may sound like a simple thing, but sometimes we don't think about it. This kind of just retaps into a bunch of things I've been saying is recovery is important when we're preparing for more efforts, long duration, multiple days in a row. It's just everything. You'll feel better when you recover right. So, is all recovery created equal? Big hot topic, and I could talk on this alone for an hour, but I just want to tap into, does it matter if it's whey protein, a plant-based protein, soy protein, if I use a bar, if I have real food, if it's a mix? In general, no, it's what you like. As long as the numbers match up correctly, it's getting 10 to 20 grams, depending on your body size, within that first 30 minutes of protein. And then that would be 30 to like 100 grams of carbohydrate. So it could be a smoothie, but it could also be in a bar. So it could also be in real food, whether it's a whey protein or a plant-based protein. That's really just your preference. I could get into all the nitpicky stuff, and maybe that's some of your questions, but the general answer is it's what you prefer and what you know your body does well with. But yeah, I can absolutely answer any questions on, I know plant proteins are very popular right now. I myself am a plant-based athlete, so I'm not here to preach that, but it's definitely something to consider what type of protein you want to refuel with. So essentially, I want to hear what you want to know, and let me answer some questions for you, because I'm sure by the time a few of you get questions in, I can spend just as much time talking about those. So what do you want to talk about? And then I'll leave my contact info up on the screen, and let's have a chat. Okay, we're 30 minutes in. I did it. I hope it wasn't too fast. Tom, do you want to help with the questions? Or
I think that's great, Breanne. Thank you so very much. So currently we're using the chat. If anyone has any questions, you can add them there, or if some people, we could certainly unmute yourself, but of course we're gonna have to watch for crosstalk and talk one at a time if we do that. The first question comes in, and curious about how your recommendations are for recovery. What would you change for a 4-hour effort versus an 8 to 12-hour day?
like an 8 to 12-hour ride?
Yes.
Wow, we got some.
We actually have some people that do that.
Awesome. That's great. Some ultra endurance. Okay, so your recovery for a 3+ hour, like a 4-hour ride, that's when, yep, you got to get that 10 to 20 grams of protein and like 30 to 80 grams of carbohydrates kind of straight away. ride, you're at a point where anything you can tolerate, get it in. You're kind of recovering partly as you go, but you don't want to give yourself, excuse me, you don't want to give yourself stomach upset by eating so much real food during the ride that you can't digest it and utilize it. Part of it depends on how fast you're going. If you're at high intensity for that long, you probably need to drink a lot of your calories. And then your recovery, you're going to want real food. Definitely the stages, to specifically answer an 8+ hour ride, you want to follow the stages in that slide where I gave that it's something immediately, and then you're eating every 2 hours and until you go to sleep. And you pretty much can't, you probably won't make the calories that you burned in that long of a ride, unless you eat like an entire pizza, which I guess you've earned it at that point. I wouldn't get too nitpicky.
Another question is, do you have a recommendation for an electrolyte mix and daily vitamins?
Yes. So my favorite brand, it actually is a Utah company, so I guess I'm a little biased, but I know the owner, I know the science behind it, and if any of you haven't tried First Endurance, let me send you some blend mixes called EFS. It's the electrolyte fueling system, and the science is so spot on. It digests so well. It tastes good. You can drink it. I do entire races. I do more gravel racing now just because it's fun. I don't do fast road races anymore because I'm a mom now and I like to do dirt. But I do 5+ hour gravel races on only liquid. I drink this mix. I don't ever chew and swallow anything, if that's of any testament. They also make a really great multivitamin that's very specific to endurance athletes, with also a side vitamin called Optogen. If you're interested in that, I'm happy to give you some information. But if you just want to get something basic at the grocery store, the main things you want to look for is the iron. This gets pretty specific, but there's a few minerals that are really important in what we look for. And one specifically is that if there is a multivitamin, that you get a chelated form of iron. And also a good multivitamin doesn't have a bunch of calcium in it, because you should take your calcium separate from your iron and your other water soluble vitamins. So again, if you want to navigate your supplements, I can help you with that. But that, to answer the question, yes, that's my recommendation, is this endurance brand.
Oh, that's terrific. Another question that's come up is, what kind of sugars do you recommend during a ride?
Simple sugars. So when I say carbohydrate, sugar is carbohydrate. Sport products are designed specifically to have a mixture of sugars, and that's actually really beneficial because our body utilizes different pathways, meaning we use glucose, fructose, so you see in ingredients for sport products that there's maltodextrin or dextrose, and those are blends of glucose and fructose in different ways that are very specific to what we utilize as we're exercising. So in general, yeah, just get carbs in. If you like to use potatoes instead of gels, totally fine. But you maybe aren't getting the fast acting sugars that our muscles specifically utilize. And so if you'd like to eat real food, I highly recommend allowing that, but then at least using a good electrolyte mix that's going to give you a good balance of sugars and electrolytes with it. I hope that makes sense. So you could eat gummy bears and you'd be fine, but you're going to perform better if you have a good mix of sugars. But simple is the key. Simple sugars.
Oh no, that's. Thank you very much, Breanne.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is, what do heavy legs during a ride indicate?
Ooh, it could be dehydration. That's a great question. So heavy legs can be a sign of fatigue, which means you're not getting enough sugar. Your brain is the most important organ in your body, and it runs on glucose. So if you don't have enough carbohydrates, which break down into glucose when you chew them, your brain will say, I'm the boss, and it will shut your legs down so that you don't pass out and fall off your bike. Your body's actually really smart. So heavy legs can be fatigue from weightlifting or hiking or something like that. So that's just soreness. But being able to tell, do I have lead legs because I'm underfueled, dehydrated, or sore, would be the top 3 reasons that you have heavy legs.
On a long ride, how do you maintain calorie and liquid intake?
Continue to eat and drink and eat and drink and eat and drink. So I know that sounds like kind of a redundant answer, but one tool, I don't know, trick, set an alarm on your computer or your watch to go off every 15 or 20 minutes to remind you to drink and eat. Because time can go by quickly and then it's like, oh shoot, it's been an hour and I haven't touched my bottle, and then you're in the hole. So setting an alarm can be a really great way. But I mean, the main answer to how do you maintain it, you have to do it. You have to be prepared, know where your gas stations are if you're going to run out of water, know where or know how much fuel you're going to need based on how much time you're going to be out there, and pack your pockets or use a camelback if you're not going to be able to get to water. Just have it on your back with a hose. I do that sometimes just because I don't want to have to stop, especially with COVID. I would ride with the camelback when I had long rides just so that I could not have to stop.
I know a lot of us ride in some pretty remote places that don't have very many places to stop, especially with COVID. You know, they've shut off all the water fountains.
Right. And so a camelback might be a great way because you can actually put extra snacks in there too. And I know it adds weight, but it's just to your torso. But it's so much better to carry around an extra 5 pounds than to not be able to eat and drink.
Yeah, exactly. I think that message is coming loud and clear. Another comment is that for a longer ride, 2 to 4 hours, they start feeling very full from drinking so many liquids. And what do you think about that? After a while, you feel so full, you don't want to intake anymore.
It's a good question. I would want to know specifically what is being intaken and how intense the ride is, because if you're timing your intake properly, you shouldn't get bogged down by your liquid because you're sweating at enough of a ratio to burn it off. So is it more that you just don't want to consume more, or is it genuinely that you feel full? And that could also be, there's multiple things. That's why I kind of want to talk to that person specifically on what this fullness is, because is it too much pre-ride food? Is it what not just what they're drinking but intaking, so that like digestion is slowed down and so it makes you feel fuller, or specifically what they're intaking to really be able to answer that one.
Another question, someone's been recommended that they give up alcohol. Would that help them improve their hydration?
Alcohol is a diuretic. So it's the same thing as coffee. I mean, even as a dietitian who I'd love to say I'm perfect, but I would never take away something that's valuable to you in your lifestyle. That's why I say, like, if you want whey protein over plant protein or what, like, there's pros and cons to everything. Yes, alcohol is a diuretic. So if you choose to drink it, it also is a hydrator because it's fluid. So it's really more about how much alcohol you're consuming in the ratio to water. I'm just gonna say this: beer is a decent recovery fluid. You're getting carbohydrates and liquid. Now, hard alcohol close to riding is going to deplete you and not be awesome. Does that make sense? Because the quantity, the how much actual ethanol you're getting and the diuretic effect, as opposed to when it's diluted in water, is going to be different. So I don't want to take anyone's coffee away. I see someone, I think, just did this with a glass of wine. Yeah, girl. This isn't beer. This is just sparkle water. I'm not presenting and telling you guys all to drink. But I'm not going to take away your morning coffee because it's a diuretic. I'm just going to say, think about how much you're intaking and if you want to have to stop and pee 10 miles into your group ride. So wait on how much caffeine, or brew a half calf, or same thing with alcohol. Have it be a reward or way to take the edge off at the end of the day, but keep it in moderation and know what you have. If you're going to get up at 5 a.m. and start writing, I wouldn't have 4 margaritas. I would say that to anybody. But having a beer as recovery, I think, is not a bad thing. I hope that answers the question. It doesn't really ruin your hydration status unless you are abusing.
Yeah, that the beer at the end of the ride sounds great.
There you go.
A person says they've been a vegetarian for 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
But they're under the impression that they should be eating 40 to 50 grams of plant protein on non-ride days while doing about 60 to 80-mile rides. Based on what you're saying, Breanne, it seems like it may be on the high end of what they actually need for protein.
It depends on this person's body size. So,
Exactly.
I mean, me versus you, Tom, probably have different protein needs. Let me tap into that on a different angle. And I think this can help it, even if you're not a vegetarian. I think this is a very, very important thing to learn. And one of the reasons that we don't focus on protein intake hugely with endurance athletes, because we're not trying to bulk up our muscles, for one thing. We don't need to eat more protein than our body needs. But the first thing I want to say is the human body can only digest up to 20 grams of protein at a time. Okay. So that's why I say 10 to 20 grams in your recovery is completely sufficient, because we can only absorb and digest so much. But our body takes amino acids from all foods. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. And so fruits, vegetables, beans, rice, nuts, like all plants have all of the amino acids, and our body takes them in digestion and builds proteins. So even though the grams of protein aren't high in those plant-based foods, when you read a nutrition label, your body still makes proteins out of them. It's how vegetarians and vegans survive. A cow is a giant vegetarian, a huge ball of muscle, and they eat grass, right? They're not eating protein to build protein. So I know that's a different, they have 4 stomachs or whatever and all that stuff, but just the idea that we make proteins from plants. And so the grams of protein doesn't need to be the focus, except for in those minute moments, like getting, if you try to average 10 to 20 maximum per meal, or in your recovery, you're going to be absolutely fine. But for your total number of the day, that specific person that asked this question, I can help you calculate calculate that as a vegetarian for your body size, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's 145 pounds.
Okay, so if we did, I'd have to do a little bit of iPhone
Or
math.
140, just put in 140.
So I would put you on a probably about 15 for a regular day times point. Oh, I'm sorry. I'd have to go. Sorry, I'm trying to do this on the fly. I would put you at divided by 4. Yeah, I'd put you at probably 40 to 60 grams of protein per day.
Okay, that's about what I thought. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Sure. And you can have a glass of wine too. We're friends already.
I think all of these should be done with wine. And I know you talked a little bit about drinking coffee and that sort of thing. What specifically about caffeine do you think?
So caffeine is put in most stimulant or pre-race type drinks and pills and things because it is just that. It's a stimulant. I'm not against caffeine use. I think it's really dependent on the person. Whether you use like a gel that has caffeine in it during a ride to give you a little bit of a stimulant. Some people, it makes their eyes go wonky. Others, they just don't want to feel like they have to go to the bathroom while they're riding, and so they avoid it. There's pros and cons, I guess. There's nothing really in the science that I know of that says black or white, do or don't use caffeine. I think it's really athlete dependent and just determining what works best for you. But most dietitians will say for long ride days, try not to have too much coffee in the morning, just because it can affect your hydration, again, because of the diuretic effect, and kind of catch up to you 3-4 hours into a ride. So start using, if you like to use caffeine, start it a couple hours in and have it like in a gel, or maybe you carry chocolate with you or something to kind of keep you going, as opposed to loading up on it in the beginning.
This is a more complicated question.
Bring it on.
Could you please talk about the grams per kilogram protein per day? It seems like the popular recommendations from sports nutritionists are 2+ grams per kilogram, which is much higher than what doctors recommend.
So first of all, is that a endurance sport nutritionist or general sport? Because most sports are strength-based. Only cycling, running, triathlon, really, or like cross-country skiing, we're the only athletes that are focused on carbohydrates. So keep that in mind. I get that question a lot. This dietitian told me that I need 70 grams of protein. And so for endurance athletes, I believe it's 1 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. So again, it's all about fueling your body for what you do. So if you're not trying to gain muscle because of your sport, then you don't have to consume more muscle than your body, or excuse me, more protein than your body needs for function of your organs and the muscles that you're using for fast twitch work.
I know we only have about 8 minutes left. Well, I'll try to pick the pace up here on the questions. A person indicates they like to eat real food on rides in addition to peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. How helpful it is to bring and eat fruit on a ride, like apples or bananas, and how about nuts and cashews?
Yeah, if you like to eat your own food, just make sure you're getting enough electrolytes. So at least have like salty cashews. And it's a little harder to maintain your balance hour after hour with real food, but you can plan accordingly and make it happen. I think that all those foods listed are absolutely fine. Just be careful with lots of fruit because of the fiber content. You can really give yourself GI upset by having a lot of fruit like apples. Bananas are the exception. They digest very easily. They break down into a simple sugar quite quickly. I always recommend bananas as a go-to fruit. Apples do in a lot of athletes cause cramping and gas because they're really high in fiber. And they'll pull water instead of give you water, even though they taste watery when you eat them. So if you are somebody who eats real food and you get stomach upset on the bike, consider those things like fiber and hydration.
Oh, that's great. That's great information. Thank you.
Sure.
What is your opinion about Gatorade?
Gatorade's fine.
Okay.
So you asked my ideal, and I list like top of the line best sport product.
Mm-hmm.
Gatorade has sugar and electrolytes, and it's hydrating. So if that tastes good to you and works for you, and you like to use it, I would so much rather you use it than not.
Okay, that's good. Since fat is also considered a source of fuel, what are your thoughts on training in ketosis?
I knew this one would come. Okay. Really hit me up if you want to dig into this one. I wrote an article that went down like a rabbit hole with a physician actually on a modified ketogenic diet for athletes. So I've done a lot of research on this, and the consensus in the field is exercising in a ketogenic state is not advantageous, especially to endurance athletes. And for the reasons I've been listing, fat is a source of fuel, but it's our slow burning backup fuel. So if you're doing efforts, endurance or below for a real long time, yeah, it would be to your advantage to consume more fats. The type of fat is also very, very important. So I'm never going to make the recommendation to try to fuel your body with fat, especially if you want to go fast on your bike. That's my short answer. I could go for a long time on that one, but my short answer is I do not recommend it based on research, not only mine, but what I've talked to a lot of my fellow dietitians on. We are not recommending ketogenic diet for endurance athletes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. There's a question about why coffee is a diuretic. Is that a diuretic? Is that because of the caffeine or something else?
Correct. Caffeine, it's just that it pulls, because of the stimulant effect, it pulls water from our kidneys in order to do its job, and then it follows by your colon resorbing water, and then it just leads to peeing more often. Kind of a weird process, but you have to take in quite a bit for it to really. I mean, do you notice if you just wake up and sit with a cup of coffee, and if you don't exercise, you just pee a lot if you sweat? So that's another thing, is it doesn't affect you as much when you're riding because you're sweating. I just saw someone bought First Endurance. You can get First Endurance through me. I'll give you all a discount code too if you email me. I'm happy to ship it out to you as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
That wasn't a plug to sell it. They sponsor me, and then I just love to share that it's amazing stuff.
Oh no, that is fantastic. It's we're always on the lookout for good products.
Yeah, I'm happy to give your team a discount code on our retail site.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And should endurance athletes avoid foods with lactose?
Only if you don't tolerate lactose. So this is another one that's kind of like plant-based or not plant-based. Lactose is a sugar, okay? So it's different than our dairy protein, right? That's our whey and casein, but lactose is a sugar. The only reason I recommend avoiding dairy around exercise is actually the inflammatory effect. If you notice that you get mucus buildup when you ride, if you snot a lot or you have mucus in your throat, it could be because you have milk in your cereal or if you eat yogurt before you ride. It just increases the inflammatory response, and that's because it's a foreign substance to our body. Lactose intolerance genuinely means you don't produce the enzyme or enough of the enzyme to break down the lactose sugar. So my general recommendation is keep it low or avoid it, especially if you're sensitive, just because it's a easier way to avoid having stomach upset or having mucus. But in your recovery, it's not really going to affect you. So maybe the best way to say it is save your dairy for post-ride.
That's great information. Thank you. And what do you think about 5-hour energy?
5-hour energies are just basically a big shot of B vitamins, and B vitamins are transport nutrients for ATP. ATP is the energy source, the way that our body actually uses energy. So they don't actually last for 5 hours. I don't know why they call it that, because especially if you're pedaling, you're going to burn through it pretty fast. I much more recommend using carbohydrates and electrolytes because that's what you're actually burning. You're not burning B vitamins. So it helps you transport them, but it can lead to headaches and also GI distress because you transport things even faster because of that load of B vitamins. I think you get a sufficient amount if you take a multivitamin in the morning that has Bs in it, or you drink a packet of Emergency. Again, if it works for you, I think that's fine, but it's kind of like taking a shot of caffeine, but it's a shot of B vitamins. And then you're going to have bright orange pee.
That's what I'm shooting for.
There you go. Depends on your goals then.
Breanne, I cannot thank you enough. You are a wealth of knowledge, and this has been probably one of the best presentations we've had. We've had over 30 people join and stay with us. And I have to plug the next speaking event, which will occur next on Thursday, May the 20th, and that's going to be about e-bikes. There's a couple that have never, they own a dealership, The Wheel, and they've never sold anything but e-bikes. And when he first heard about them, he thought it was a ridiculous idea. So they've been very successful in our San Francisco, San Rafael area. Thank you, Breanne. Thank you so very much. We'll make this recording available to everyone on the GPC series, Speaker Series YouTube channel. And we'll also provide you with Breanne's contact information as well as her slideshow. So look forward to that. And thanks everyone for participating tonight. And thank you, Breanne, so very much.
Thank you all very much. If I'm ever out in the area, I will maybe see if I can join a group ride or something.
Oh, absolutely. We have some great rides.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, lots of hills here. So you got to love hills.
Well,
you have that in Utah.
I was second in the nation at the Hill Climb Nationals once. So
oh my gosh.
Climbing is my thing.
Well, you'll have to wait at the top of the hill by the time I show up. You'll have to have lunch and dinner and I'll catch up to you.
Would you repeat the Mount Tam, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, that's what Kimmy did. She did the Breanne's a friend of Kimmy King's that did the Everest event up Mount Tamalpais. So
That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, just fantastic. Thank you so very much, everybody, and have a lovely evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.